On today's Business Insights podcast, I'm pleased to be joined by Frank Holmes and Chris Sutton to discuss some of the core objectives behind the Cardiff Capital Region, and in particular, the first of a series of reports called State of the Nation. Afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Before we discuss some of the detail in the report, would you mind providing our listeners with a brief introduction to yourselves and also an overview of your role within Cardiff Capital Region, please?
So I'm Frank Holmes. I've been involved with the Regional Economic Growth Partnership Board for just over 2 years. It's a board that I chair, as well as the investment panel, which came into being towards the latter half of last year.
My name's Chris Sutton. I'm here today because I'm a member of the Economic Growth Partnership and also investment panel, which are key components of the City Deal. By way of background, I'm a chartered surveyor. I've worked in South Wales for 30 years, mainly in the commercial and industrial markets. And it's been really interesting actually over those years, because you see the ebb and flow of investment into parts of South Wales reflecting the wider economy, but also reflecting the relative benefits and disbenefits of different locations. And infrastructure is key in that regard.
I think Chris brings a huge amount of knowledge and expertise to the board, particularly on infrastructure, whereas my background is finance and business, and I bring an element of commercial acumen to that.
But I think it's worthwhile looking here at what is infrastructure in the context of the Cardiff Capital Region? Well, it's part of the business environment. And what I see is that the City Deal is all about improving the business environment. Now, the business environment comprises a series of different factors, and probably most people would put skills towards the top. Infrastructure may well be towards the top, and actually Frank's expertise in funding and finance is absolutely crucial, because that's also really important. And there's a range of other factors: property, planning, the use of regulation, taxes, or whatever else it might be, governance and leadership. But this is, I think, the key point of what we're trying to do is improve the business environment. What that then does, it generates investment, and that creates employment.
And for me also, the ability to assess and analyze investment propositions is fundamental. And that's something that I and some of the other members of the board have been doing for many, many years. And I think we bring that element of, long, hard road expertise.
Connectivity is the theme of the first report within the series that I believe will be released in due course. What's the overriding objective of this first report, and what other reports are in the pipeline?
We drafted our plan, and believe it or not, when we were appointed to this board, we were told that our role would be to advise, to assess, and to be advocates for the region. What we didn't realize was that we were going to have to be the authors also of the Economic Industrial Plan, which we were commissioned to do subsequently. In that context, there are three fundamental pillars: connectivity, which we will talk about, competitiveness, and resilience. And therefore, it was deemed that the best way to sort of collect the data would be alongside those three pillars, within those three pillars. And we commissioned Cardiff University, who've done an outstanding job in pulling together data from a huge range of sources, which has never been done before, by the way. You would have expected that data to be readily available. It was not, and is not. And therefore, this is the first time ever that the region, and indeed in Wales, that so much data has been pulled together to assess what is really going on in our territory. And that is the beginning of a process, because it will continue thereafter. And Cardiff University has engaged 2 PhD students to continue with the dashboard, which will be regularly updated so that everybody can access what is going on in the region.
There's a bit of economic theory here. In terms of the perfect market, you need perfect information. And it's really important that we know what's going on in our patch. Cardiff Capital Region is quite a diverse area. It's an area of contrasts. We know about the economic contrasts, but the geographic contrasts as well. We go from having a really vibrant and strong capital city on the coastal belt, We have a very prosperous coastal belt as well, through Monmouthshire all the way to Bridgend. And then we have the valleys. And the valleys are, again, there are some very strong valleys and some quite weak, disadvantaged areas as well. If you look at, say, Treforest and the Rogerstone sort of area and going into Cumbran, which is the edge of the valleys, these are really strong areas. But then you go into other valleys that some of them don't have railway line access, some of them are really quite difficult to access. You have investment in infrastructure like the Heads of the Valleys Road, which is changing the geography, and it's changing the geography of business as well in that regard. What you're seeing is perhaps a polarising of industry, particularly to the top of the valleys and the south of the valleys, because it's quite difficult to move around in the middle. Yes, there are very strong clusters in the middle. Places like Oakdale and Cumcunnan and other places, there are really strong clusters there. But actually, the investment in infrastructure can influence where the next round of investment decisions are made in terms of business, industry and jobs.
I think it's clear to see that the overall project is going to have a positive impact on the region. What challenges do you foresee over the coming years?
I think one of the challenges for the investment program is the fact that we are looking at a 20-year program, and the money is literally going to be spread over that time horizon. And it's very difficult to sit here today and actually anticipate where we'll be in 10 years' time or even in 5 years' time, and be making the right decisions now without good quality data. And for that very reason, it's equally very likely that most of the money that we can access will be invested between years 4 and 7. But nonetheless, we've got to be making decisions now that will have a long-term benefit and hopefully achieve the objectives and certainly the targets of the Cardiff Capital Region's City Deal.
We can have the best aims and aspirations for our region, but actually you also get overtaken by events, and you look at the macroeconomic and political position over the past 2 or 3 years, it really is quite difficult. I suspect actually at the moment we're on a bit of a Brexit bounce in terms of there is some certainty. The direction of travel may or may not be to each individual's liking, but there is some certainty there. But I suspect that those investment decisions from businesses won't be truly unlocked until we see the next round of a final trading position with the EU going forward. So that it's just, you have to look at this, the wider economic position. Then we look in terms of the challenges of Wales. We have certain industries in difficulty at the moment, steel being in particular. And it's Port Talbot isn't in our patch, but Liberty Steel is, which is in the news this week. And then we also see the challenges of policy in terms of decarbonisation, climate change, and we're trying to look at this on a really quite a micro level in terms of Southeast Wales, 1.5 million people, 10 local authority areas. But at any one time, you've got macro and microeconomic factors affecting what we're trying to achieve.
And to that point, we are going to talk about one of the 3 pillars of our industrial plan, which is connectivity. But alongside that sits resilience. And resilience really means being able to adapt to the changes ahead and the challenges ahead, including those identified in the industrial strategy of clean growth, artificial intelligence, future of mobility, and an aging population. So, we're having to come up with a plan and hopefully an investment strategy that does buy into that resilience.
Connectivity is the theme of this first report. What does that mean, and how important is connectivity?
I think connectivity is a vital part of the business environment, but it's not just business. Connectivity connects people with their place of work, yes, but also with their health facilities, education, leisure, retail, through to their connections with their family as well. So it's absolutely vital that we have that in place. We've seen very significant announcements in terms of rail over the past 12, 18 months, and it's in the process. We all know that there is a very large program of investment going into rail, which forms part of the City Deal, and perhaps we'll go into that a bit later on. But that improvement in connectivity improves access to markets and will therefore generate jobs and generate investment.
I think also in terms of connectivity, it's not just about digital and infrastructure. It goes beyond that. It's about true partnerships between business, education, public sector and social enterprise, as well as having more collaborative and cohesive policies between the local authorities, Welsh Government and UK Government.
It's also worthwhile looking at what infrastructure has done in terms of certain clusters. And I'm a believer in clusters emerge, and they can't necessarily be dictated to as to where they would go. But in terms of the emergence of key sectors at the moment, you look at the semiconductor cluster around Newport, where the City Deal is very heavily invested in, and also the cybersecurity area in Newport as well. And digital connectivity for both of those sectors is absolutely fundamental. So if we are looking to grow the industries of the future, much cliched phrase, but cyber and semiconductors are right up there, then we have to invest in digital, and for other sectors we'll have to look at other forms of infrastructure.
At the core of the City Deal is the South Wales Metro. I believe some £738 million worth of funding has been ring-fenced for the project. How important is the Metro project to the region, and what's the latest update on the overall scheme?
South Wales Metro is at the core of the City Deal, but it's also at the core of South Wales in terms of the geography of it, because what it does, it connects Cardiff, the capital city, which is a strong, vibrant centre, a location which has gone from strength to strength and been a true success story of the 21st century, and it allows the hinterland to connect to Cardiff. To a lesser extent, it also allows the hinterland to connect with other parts of it as well. The Valleys Lines electrification will see those core Valleys Lines north of Cardiff electrified, and then we'll see a new range of rolling stock brought in there. There will be an improvement in speed, but I think the key improvement will be in terms of capacity. So each one of those valleys, you'll start to see 4 trains an hour, and it almost becomes like a tube line. In terms of you'll just wander down to your station and you'll see a train coming in there. What it's also doing, it's changing the economic geography of South Wales in terms of, if you look at, for example, the Taff Valley, in Taffswell, you see the new Metro depot being constructed. It's on the site of the old Forge Masters plant in Taffswell. Go a couple of miles further up, you see the Metro depot and the hub, which is the Keolis Amy main operating centre. It's just been in the news, it's been formally opened, and the work on the line starts in March. And then the jewel in the crown, go up to Pontypridd, and you'll see a local authority having constructed 100,000 square foot of offices, and 2/3 of that has been let to Transport for Wales, and that will become the new operating base there. So we're taking jobs out of Cardiff and putting them into the valleys, and that can only be good news.
And any other related projects which fit into the overall scheme?
Well, there is the Metro Plus project, which effectively takes the metro infrastructure that further into the valleys, into those destinations that weren't necessarily earmarked for the metro project. So enabling, those towns that are further outside of the region to be able to access metro.
Yeah, so Metro Plus is a way of trying to capitalise upon that investment and start to look at transit-orientated development around those station nodes. There is also Metro Central. There's lots of metros in this, sorry. But Metro Central is the improvements that are required to Cardiff Central train station. And this report has one graph which is quite striking, actually, in terms of the passenger throughput of the various stations in South Wales. And it won't be any surprise that the number one is Cardiff Central train station. Absolutely phenomenal throughput through there. But it's at capacity. And what you're seeing at the moment is you're seeing major development around the station, both to north and south. And we see at the moment HMRC are just finishing the new public sector hub. 4,000 jobs going there, coming out of Clanician and coming into the city centre. That must be a good thing in terms of promoting the city centre and promoting public transport. The BBC will move in over the next 3 months as well. There's another 1,000 people there. So there's 5,000 people daily going to be commuting into the centre of Cardiff, and that's before we start looking at the development south of the railway line. And you've got the Brain sites, and then going into Dumballs Road, there are very significant development sites here that require Central Station to be invested in. Now, my impression, it's my reading here, is that Network Rail has done a series of the big stations. They've done the London Terminini. They've also done Reading and Birmingham, but each one of these stations has been like £1 billion a time to do. And they simply can't do that for the next sort of 10 or so stations where Cardiff Central is. And so I think what you're seeing a combination here of UK government, Welsh government, and then through the City Deal, the local authorities, investing £200 million potentially in a series of improvements at Cardiff Central to improve capacity. And that is joint working, which is at the heart of the City Deal.
We talk a lot about transport. What about digital infrastructure? How important is fast and reliable digital connectivity for the region?
It's absolutely vital. And we are in the process of constructing a digital plan for the region. As it happens, the predecessor of that plan wasn't available before the introduction of 5G. 5G now will transform everything, and therefore we've had to consider rewriting the plan. But at the moment we have, from memory, at least 3 project applications, investment applications, which will extend the digital infrastructure well into the valleys, to those areas which are literally devoid of digital connectivity, and which is absolutely critical to revive some of those areas, both from a social and a business context. So we're looking at projects which introduce new technologies, microwave technologies. We're looking at a project which is using the railway lines as a means of connectivity, and as well as participating in a larger 5G project.
When we're digging up the ground for some of these big infrastructure projects, am I correct in saying that this is being married up with the plantation of fibre broadband lines and the likes?
Well, that would make a huge amount of sense, but until we really know where the 5G project is going, it seems unlikely that we could be making some, bad decisions in the short term.
We've seen significant investment in digital already. We see commitments from UK government, where there is a drive from UK government to see 100% fibre to the home, but actually. We also need to be looking at the business capacity. We've already been talking about the semiconductor and cyber hubs are based around Newport. We have a major data centre in Newport as well, next generation data.
Yeah.
There's also a data centre in Cardiff. There's the Internet Exchange, BT in Cardiff. So we have existing facilities here.
You mentioned data. Data is a key fundamental driver when it comes to understanding performance and indeed opportunities going forward. What specifically is going on in this area?
Well, there's a number of things. I guess data is vital, not only to enable us to make the right investment decisions, but also to monitor our performance as well. We have been set some pretty tough targets in terms of job creation, GVA improvement, and raising finance. So we will need very good data to enable us to monitor our performance. At the same time, data is vital for us to know exactly what's going on in the region. So having produced these reports in the first instance, this is just the beginning of a continuous process. We have these PhD students, and they will be maintaining a dashboard. So as the data becomes available, we will be continuously updating the regional information. But also on top of that, if we talk about data, the public sector in Wales has access to huge amounts of data. And in fact, we have on our doorstep within the region the Patent Office, HMRC and others, ONS, and accessing that data could be vital for creating new businesses and helping existing businesses to grow their own commercial offerings.
Data is just fundamental in terms of being able to look at South East Wales, Cardiff Capital Region, in terms of understanding the region, because so much. So some statistics are on an all-Wales basis, some are local authority-led, and there's various other units of measurement as well. We're looking at this as a Cardiff Capital Region. We need information across that area. We already know that there are significant contrasts between different parts of the region, but we need to understand that. The City Deal allows us to unlock pockets of growth And to do that, you need to be making sure that we're unlocking the right pockets of growth.
Fast forward into the future, you've got that magic wand. What would you like to see happen over the next few years with regards to some of these projects in the deal?
I certainly would like to see us achieving some targets in terms of investment. We have a number of front-running proposals that I would like to see cross the line, including the Housing Investment Fund, the Metro Plus, which we talked about earlier. Hopefully Metro Central will come into the fore. Some of the digital projects as well, certainly the 5G project, and one or two others that have good offerings for the region. I certainly would like to see the cluster and some of the other, certainly the compound semiconductor cluster, expand its capabilities, as well as bringing into play fintech, medical devices, and maybe something in the creative industries. So I think that would be a fantastic achievement to see them starting to flourish, as well as maybe having some better cohesion at government level with UK Gov and the Welsh Government.
Your question is, what do we want to see in 12 months? And bear in mind, the City Deal is potentially a 20-year project. So there are certain projects here which will go on and on. What the City Deal has already done very strongly is improve links between various layers of government, because the City Deal is fundamentally jointly owned by UK government and Welsh government. And what we want to see is improved cross-working. We're already seeing that. We want to see continued improvements in that cross-working between UK government, Welsh government, and the local authorities. The local authorities have come together through Cardiff Capital Region to the joint cabinet of the leaders. We're seeing progress, we're seeing leadership, drive and vision. We want that to continue. On the ground, we want to see the metro, and in a year's time, we'll see real improvement in the metro, because there will be rolling stock arriving and there will be work happening on the tracks, literally. I think Frank has already talked about the semiconductor hub and the cluster around that, and we will see continued improvement there. I suspect we'll see some more projects come off the ground and be announced by then as well. And hopefully we'll get some dots on the map across the region. Now, they shouldn't just be across the region for the region's sake, but actually there are real opportunities in different parts of Cardiff Capital Region, and we need to build upon that.
I think finally, just to say, it would be important to also get acceptance that not making investments for the sake of making investments is equally important as making the right ones. And what we don't want to do is to spend this investment money in a manner that is driven by getting the money out there rather than getting into the right projects.
Final question. You're both incredibly busy guys, lots on every day. How is your work-life balance? How do you manage to cope with the demands of this role?
With great difficulty, I have to say. I guess when you come into these things, you're probably slightly naive and you think that that you'll be able to balance more than one activity. But like all things, both Chris and I are doing this more for a vocation and giving back to the region where we both worked and had good livelihoods. I think it's really important that more and more people do these things to help the region. We're fantastically blessed with a very good board of capable individuals who have all succeeded in their own walks of lives and are giving up precious time to help the region. I think there's a long way to go, and there will be people that come after us. I'd like to think this isn't just about the people, but it's about putting in place the right sort of disciplines, the governance, and the right way to behave in terms of making decisions, and that will continue throughout this 20-year program.
There's personal motivation here, and it actually makes work more interesting if you can feel that you're making a difference. I've previously been involved with the CBI and some other Welsh Government panels as well. Those have come to an end. I've had a little bit of time that I could do that. In terms of my day job, I know the patch, and it's great to feel that you hopefully are making a difference.
I think just to finalise on that, it was put to me at the time when I was having the interview for this role that actually what they wanted was a busy person, because busy people get things done.
Frank, Chris, it's been a pleasure to meet you both. Look forward to discussing the next report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.